Welcome back to Season 5 of the Changing Earth podcast with Sara F. Hathaway, blending survival fiction and fact to bring you entertaining education that will help you dream, survive, and thrive. And now, here's your host, Sara F. Hathaway.
Hey guys, what is up? Welcome back to the Changing Earth podcast. This is episode number 186, Season 5, episode 23. So I hope you all are doing well out there. I know it's still chilly. It's been getting chilly here, actually. We had some pretty good snow, so that's always exciting. I've been working hard on The Endless Night. It's going through the rigmaroles of editing right now. You can look forward to that book's release end of May, probably beginning of June, simply because I want to have book 7 ready right behind it. The Endless Night is really a story that leaves you hanging in the end, and I want you guys to be able to continue the story really quickly after that. So I want to make sure book 7's done right behind it, and so I'll have that work to do in the interim as well. I am getting ready for multiple tests right now in my martial arts, so that's always fun. I'm doing sports jiu-jitsu and jiu-jitsu. Sports jiu-jitsu is like a mix-up between your ground game and your hand game, so it's light contact, MMA kind of. But I'm getting ready to placement test in that sport as well as testing in jiu-jitsu, and I'm finally committed to a test there, and it's going to be a huge challenge, so I'll keep you up to speed on how that's going. But I am actively training and getting ready for that because it's a huge endurance test at that point. So wish me luck on that one. So last week in Dark Days in Denver, they were headed to Denver, and Erica was reminiscing about being able to go out and wild forage and things like that. Today they make it to Denver and meet their contacts. And the group there is being led by a group of preppers or survivalists that were so before the collapse happened. And so it really sparked the question in my mind as to how likely is it that today's survivalists, today's preppers are going to step up into that role if things were to happen. So here to talk to us about that today is Brian Duff. He's the host of Mind for Survival. Great dude. I'm really stoked to have him on my show, so I can't wait to introduce you to him. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and get into Chapter 23 of Dark Days in Denver. Chapter 23. The bus rolled into Sedalia to the cheers of a large crowd gathered in the town. These people were making their presence known for a reason, and the town was packed. Erica's heart pounded in her chest as they drove through the shells of buildings towards an old supermarket. Bennett stood up and paced down the aisle. Erica knew his stride. It was the same walk he reduced his nervous energy with before every battle. Remember, guys, when we exit the bus here, Erica and Cassidy are our top priorities. We box around our persons of interest and take them into the building. Then we extend a perimeter. You got that, Master Gunnery Sergeant Nicholton directed? Yes, sir, everyone answered. The bus rolled to a stop in front of an old grocery store. It was mostly intact. Erica noticed a corner that sustained quake damage, but it was rebuilt using remnants of other buildings. Nicholton, Gleason, Hensley, and Ned exited first. Bennett stood in the doorway of the bus, waiting for Erica. Cassidy went down the stairs first, and the crowd cheered. But when Erica went out the door, the mass of people roared like thunder and closed in on them. Erica raised her fist up into the air. "Are you ready to take back your country?" she called upon the crowd. "Yeah!" they cheered. "Are you ready to fight for your freedom?" she asked. "Yeah!" they responded. "Tonight, we bring you weapons so you can fight. Fight for a free America, one where everyone is created equal," she professed. Her guards closed in behind her as she was ushered into the building, but she kept pumping her fist into the air each time they would chant her name. As they entered the building, nothing of the interior resembled the grocery store it once was. It looked more like a town hall. Erica chuckled, remembering the first time Daniel saw an old grocery store from the past. He'd marveled at the size and thought it was used for community gatherings. "On point, Cupcake," Bennett said, watching her mind wander. They were approaching two men and a woman who looked to be in charge. One of the men was a tall guy with a bald head. The other man was much shorter and wore a ball cap. The woman wore the same ball cap, and her hair was pulled through the back of it. Cassidy greeted them warmly, as if they knew one another for years. "Just like I told you, Craig. Weapons to fight the good fight," Cassidy said to the bald man. "It's not just about weapons, Cassidy. You guys brought hope and motivation," the shorter guy with the hat said. "Don't you think the feds are doing a fine job of that on their own?" Cassidy remarked. "They sure are," the woman interjected. "The feds are only letting landowners back into the north. All refugees are being turned away. They said their camps are too full, and they don't care where their loyalties lie. If they're not sending help, then we want them out of the West," the taller man said. "We'd be better off without them. But enough of that. We haven't been introduced to your traveling companion yet," he said, indicating Erica. "This is Miss Erica Moore. Her presence is sure to draw the feds out of their holes," Cassidy said proudly, introducing Erica. Erica stepped forward. "Hello, nice to meet you," she greeted them. "Darren Patel and my wife Sabrina," the short man said, introducing himself and his partner. "Craig Winters," the bald man said. His eyes watched Staff Sergeant Merkley enter the building. "Will you excuse me?" he asked, heading towards Merkley. Cassidy and her entourage went with them, leaving Erica and Vince with Darren and Sabrina. "How did you two get wrapped up in this?" Erica asked. "I've always loved camping and outdoor stuff. My wife Sabrina grew up in a prepper family. When I met her, she started showing me the preparedness lifestyle. It just made sense. We even ran a survival training school before the Great Quake. When everything went down, the community of survivors started looking to us for directions," Darren explained. "And here we are," Sabrina added. "It wasn't by choice. It just kind of happened. I'm a nurse, so I've been organizing medical needs, which I assume are about to get a lot more demanding." "I never chose to be in this position either," Erica admitted to them. They looked at her curiously. "Sometimes life deals you cards, and you just have to play them," Erica added. They nodded their heads in understanding. "Guess we should head out to check out these weapons," Darren noted. "I'm going to check in at the medical tent and make sure we're ready." "It was so nice to have met you," Sabrina said, walking off with a small escort of guards. "Let's go check it out," Vince said, eager to see what they brought. Exiting the building, Erica's guards closed in tight around her. "Good people?" Bennett questioned quietly, joining her side. "Seem decent enough to me," Erica replied. "I bet we would have been friends in another life." "Their man Craig runs the military operations." "Good job. Keep your ears open, okay?" Bennett commanded. "Yes, sir," Erica replied. The people outside assembled into teams, and each team took a turn coming forward and receiving new weaponry. There were military-grade automatic weapons, an assortment of shotguns, and even a grenade launcher for each team. Some of the fighters were no older than 13. Erica hated the calm before the storm. She knew, looking out over the assembled individuals, that many of them would not live to see the sunrise. "We gotta do what we gotta do," Vince assured her, knowing his woman's thoughts too well. "I know, Vince," she replied solemnly. As they gathered their new weaponry, the teams would head north into Denver. Some were on foot and some were taken in transports. "Come on, Cupcake, we're headed out," Bennett told her, breaking her train of thought. The time for thinking was over. They boarded a transport headed for Littleton. They needed to sweep the feds out of the area so they could continue east to Centennial. There, they would make a stand and try to draw the feds out. As Erica sat in the transport tapping her foot, she could hear the sound of gunfire in the distance. "It started," Nicholton announced, gripping his rifle. His radio chirped, and he responded to it. "Okay, people, we have federal turret sights up ahead. They're armed with .50 caliber machine guns," Nicholton announced. "We're going to swing around to the back to take it down." The sun was dipping into late evening. Soon it would be pitch black. "Cloaks?" Erica asked Bennett. "Not yet. We want them to know we're here. I'll let you know when," Bennett responded, watching the action outside. The transport pulled to a stop in an old parking garage. "This is our stop," Nicholton directed the team. They filed off the bus and took up a wedge formation. Vince and Erica took up the rear positions with long rifles to pick off any snipers and make long-range shots to keep the team safe. They walked down the strangely quiet street, ready to take on anything. Stack up down this alley, Nicholton commanded. Erica shuffled to the middle of the line. Normally, she would have been in the front of the group because she was short and easy to see over. Now they stacked her in the middle for her protection. First Sergeant Bennett put his hand on Erica's back as he stacked up behind her. Vince, Victoria, Star, and Kyle composed one group with Bennett and Erica. The other group, Cassidy, Phillip, Ned, Nicholton, Hensley, and Eli, headed down the parallel alley. As they emerged, they saw the place where the feds were dug in, peppering the militia group with rounds. It was an old storefront with bags of concrete stacked in front. Erica knew that the recent rains would have turned the bags hard, and they would be tough to shoot through and impossible to move. Nicholton signaled for Erica's group to stay put as they entered the building behind the storefront. Gunfire was heard as the federal guards inside the building were alerted to their presence. Erica's team spread out into hiding positions as a large group of federal reinforcements approached. Bennett had them wait until the approaching soldiers were in the perfect position, and then they opened fire. Unaware of their presence, the federal soldiers scrambled, but it was too late. Erica's team shot them down and then closed the circle around the feds manning the defensive position. Before long, Cassidy's team fell on them, and they were annihilated by the assault force. But not before they had radioed to the command center that a large invading force was overtaking the south of Denver. Well, you know these chapters coming up are going to be a lot of fun with the whole battle and everything in Denver. So I tried to really dig in here really hard and present the battle scenario to you. So as the battle begins, Erica finds out these contacts that are leading this group were led by these people who used to be preppers or survivalists before the Great Quake happened. So here to talk to us about the real life prospect of today's preppers and survivalists becoming these leaders of the future is Brian Duff. Brian Duff is the host of Mind for Survival. He was featured on season 4, and now he's being featured on season 5. Brian Duff is the go-to resource for concerned people who want to improve their safety, security, and preparedness. He is a proud former Army Ranger, paramedic, firefighter, high-threat security specialist, and international security director, who has served and protected people around the globe for decades. When he's not working to help others, he can be found in the garage tinkering away, out on the hiking trail, or meeting up with friends and occasionally trying to find the end of the internet. Make the choice. Take a look at Brian's virtual home, mindforsurvival.com, and set yourself up to overcome and survive any difficult situation. Once again, you can get a hold of Brian at www.mindforsurvival.com, www.mind4survival.com. So let's go ahead and welcome Brian to the show.
Today, I am back with Brian Duff from Mind for Survival. Brian, thanks so much for coming back on this season. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks a lot for having me back on. It's awesome. I'm stoked.
Yeah, always good to pick your brain a little bit on what's going on. You've got some big events coming up, so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience again, let them know who you are, and then let them know about your cool event you got coming up.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Brian Duff with the Mind for Survival. You can get me over at Mind, the number 4, and survival.com. Have the whole social media presence just like everybody else in this niche. But I am a former Army Ranger, paramedic. I got about 10, 11 years overseas in Iraq and other places like that. I run a medical training center out here in Las Vegas. And this coming March 22nd, we're doing the preparedness experience. Myself, Dale Goodwin, and Ryan Mitchell are teaming together and have a bunch of great speakers coming in, including Chris Weathersman and some other people. And it's going to be a great time. Go over to the preparednessexperience.com and check that out if you're interested in getting tickets. It's a limited event we're going to have about 80 people or so here, and it should be a really great time. So,
yeah, it sounds pretty cool. I'm like, man, I wish I could make it out there, but the fundage.
Right.
Us Californians, we live pretty tight over behind the Iron Curtain. So
yeah, nice little taxes over there.
Yeah, on everything. So luckily they didn't do the tax. They were thinking about that one. Now they're doing the water tax.
Shot down.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Everybody's like, no. No.
Yeah.
With that.
Right. No, that's crazy. So.
Yeah. Viva la revolution. We'll see. So, so today, my team's rolling into Denver, and they meet up with this group about 500 strong, and it's a bunch of preppers and survivalists, and they survived through the whole planetary changes that have been taking place, and they're not very happy with the federal system that's now been put in place. It's turned a lot more into a socialist regime just because they needed to be able to control everything to get things back online. So it's now the Federal Republic of America, and a lot of people are not jiving with that. So the Ogallala Reservoir sits from about Nebraska down to the panhandle of Texas, and the earthquakes caused it to fall in. So now there's like this big divide, right, between the middle region of the United States and this western wing that's still holding on. So that's kind of their stronghold there. And so my question would be, do you see preppers as really taking this role and stepping up to be leaders in a post-collapse society?
Yeah, I think a lot of preppers would. I think, it's always a mixed bag when you have people and assuming leadership, because not everybody that you have out there, you don't necessarily want them as a leader. And some people aren't just good at it, but I think preppers will have the advantage that they've been thinking about this stuff. So they at least have an idea of what's going on, what are the implications of what is happening, and kind of an idea of how to best deal with the situation, as opposed to people maybe, I'm talking more cities where they may not have thought about this stuff, and I think also your military types, which a lot become preppers and stuff, are used to dealing with situations like this. So yeah, I think by and large, you would see some preppers kind of rising to the surface during really a SHTF situation.
Yeah, it's interesting you say, some of the leaders that would step up are maybe not the ones that you'd want to follow, because people that are usually eager to step into those roles usually just want to, feel the power or whatever,
Right.
like be able to have control and things like that. So I think you're looking for a much more organic type of leadership rather than somebody who'd be like, yeah, I'll lead us all and it's going to be great,
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people do it because they want that feeling of power. They want to be in charge. And, I've led large organizations. I've had, a couple thousand people under me at times. And what I found is even as a leader, even with a large organization, you're not out there telling people what to do. As a small leader, like in the military, you have a squad leader, a team leader. Yeah, but more of it is you're there facilitating things and providing an overarching guidance for people, saying, hey, here's the way we should look about this. And you rely on your junior leaders to make stuff happen, but you're really a facilitator. You're just clearing the way so that they can get done what they need to do.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And now, I'm trying to write a lot of societal rebuilds at this point because there's mass chaos from the planetary changes happening. Mm-hmm. And that usually organically happens in the writing too, where it's just, you're whoever's in charge, they're just there because they kind of see the biggest picture and can put those little players into place to get the jobs done that need to be done.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would agree with that. So I looked at a lot of forums about this question, about how people would react to, stepping into leadership roles. And a lot of people feel that, no, the preppers would just go underground. They're so solitary now. Nobody wants anybody to know their business. Everybody wants to pretty much stay on the down low, and I tend to disagree with that, because the more information we can share with people, the more people we can get prepared, and then the majority, we can get more of our communities prepared. We can't do that on an individual level within the community.
Right.
So what's your opinion? Do you think that they just go underground and be like, oh, screw you all,
I think it's a mixed bag like everything else. I mean, you do have that segment of the prepper community. I think a lot of it goes back to like the survivalists of the 80s and 90s, where it's like, no, I'm just doing my own thing. I don't want anybody around. I'm preparing because everybody's so worried about people taking their stuff or the government doing something. So you'll always have that aspect of it. But like you said, I think it's a really good point is I think one of the big things as preppers that we can do is help educate other people. Now, you're not going to get through to everybody. It's just not going to happen. But the more people we can help prepare, the less people are going to come and try to take your stuff, the less that people are going to need to be dependent upon others. So it'll help out the whole situation. Now, obviously, everybody needs to take in their own family and their own considerations when it comes to, hey, I got 2 years worth of food. This has been a major event that we may not be back on our feet for 2 years. So I'm not sharing my food, or that's all an individual call on what they want. But yeah, it's kind of tough. I think and if you look in like a lot of the prepper groups that you're in, more and more people are recognizing that you can't do it on your own. It's impossible. I mean, you have to go to sleep. If there's violence going on, you have to sleep at some time. So who's pulling your security? If you want to cook dinner, where are you going to go get your water from? Do you have to go down and get water? I mean, you could spend your whole day just trying to figure out how you're going to prepare and what you're going to get to eat. So, eventually you're going to run into people. I mean, you can go out in the middle of nowhere. I've been out in the most remote places, and all of a sudden there's somebody there, and so you're going to have to deal with people. So it's kind of a good idea to get ahead of that and figure out how you're going to have to interact with them. And, humans are herd animals in a lot of ways. We are very social animals. If you put a prisoner in solitary confinement, they go bananas. So, everybody, we think about Rambo and stuff in the Rambo movie and all that, off in the woods doing his own thing, which at the end of the book, Colonel Troutman actually kills Rambo. So if you ever read the book, you'll see that. But
the book, so much better than the movie, right? Yeah,
exactly. But yeah, so I think a lot of people they want to think that they have these grandiose ideas that, oh, I'll go out and survive. If I don't know if you ever talked with Nicole Appelian that was on Alone. Yep. Talk to Nicole about being out there on your own for a long time. It gets a little monotonous after a while, and it causes, it's rough.
You're talking to the volleyball.
Right, exactly.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I always tell everybody, like, okay, so you think you're going to go out and like, oh, I'm going to homestead by myself. Well, can you grow your garden, guard your garden, harvest your garden all at the same time? That's impossible. Yeah. And even like a family of 4, that's a tall order.
Well, and people think about that, and we tend to think of things in like this best case situation, right? So, okay, yeah, you're out there and you say, okay, I can do the stuff on my own. How many people who say that have ever gotten the flu or broken a bone?
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, now you have the flu and you're down hard for a week, and that was the week you're supposed to plant your crops, or you're supposed to harvest your crops. Or if you have, cattle, you're going to have to go out there. Now, if that's the middle of the winter time, you're already sick, so you're going out, let's say, you're in a bad situation. The weather's not making it, or you can't even get out of bed. I mean, we've all been sick. There's been times I literally couldn't get out of bed, or you're injured. How are you going to do that? Well, now if you can't do that, heck, if you break a leg and you can't get yourself fixed or do something, how are you going to even cook your food and do your other stuff? You got a broken leg. So the bottom line is we need other people to do stuff. And the idea that we're going to do everything on our own, it's great. It's wonderful. Have that ability to get out there for a little bit, but for long term, it's not a good option, I don't think.
Yep. I agree. It's kind of like the, like you say, the glamorous idea, like, oh, the pie in the sky. We do it all alone, or bug out, Yeah. I'm gonna bug out by myself and da da da. Yeah. Well, that's not really reality, because like everybody else is too. I mean, there's like how many people here? And like you say, you could be in the most remote area and you're still going to run into somebody. So, what are you going to do at that point? Personally, I'd rather make friends rather than foes, but I'm a pretty kind person. And
yeah. Well, and when you're sitting there, if you're, you decide, okay, well, this is going to be a really long term, we're talking years, and you're going to plant your food. Okay, well, what do you, like you said earlier, what are you doing while you're planting? Who's watching your back? Because if anybody finds out that you've planted food and they're hungry, they're going to want to come and get some of it. I mean, you don't have to worry about people coming to get your food. What about the deer?
The animals.
The animals. Yeah. They're going to come and eat your food, and you can't stay awake for 20,
Yep, ground squirrels.
I've had to stay awake for 3-4 days at a time. And I'll tell you, after about 2 days going on to 3 days, yeah, you might as well be in La La Land, because there's some weird stuff going on in your head. So.
Right? It's true too. And the older you get, the harder it is as well. Like when I was younger, it wasn't that big of a deal, but now it's like, dude, I've just been up too long. I can't do this anymore. I'm all irritable and just want to kill somebody. And
and that's a good point too. I think a lot of the younger people, like, I can do this on my own. Well, when I was a young firefighter, I remember at the department, I was 21 or so. These old firefighters that were like 40 were talking about, oh man, I'm all it hurts to get up and this and that. And I'm like,
Huh?
oh, you bunch of Sallies. What's wrong with you? Come on, man. Just suck it up. Yeah. Until I hit 40, I'm like, oh no, that's like really true. Like
That's for
you're,
real. Yeah.
yeah. Those aches and pains. Yeah. They
Uh,
really, they can bother you.
Yeah, I live in a perpetual state of soreness,
Yep.
like
Exactly.
forever. That's because I just train so much. It's just like, yep, if I want to
Right.
do it, I just got to live in that perpetual state of soreness. Drink pickle juice, man. It
Yeah.
works.
Pickle juice and apple cider vinegar.
Yep, yep. Get that lactic acid out.
Yep.
So, but it does. It makes a big difference. And then if you're gonna put your 18-year-old on guard, they're out there. God knows what they're doing. So
No,
that's
I
not
mean,
gonna
think
work
about
out.
that, like right there. Like, okay, I'm gonna put my 18-year-old on guard. So, and I get it, an 18-year-old goes in the military and all that, but you're saying, hey, I want you to go stand out there with a gun and get in a fight or, deal with other possible bad guys. Do you really want to put your son or daughter to have
And
to do that?
that's yeah.
Like, hey, I know, why don't we just form a group and we'll put somebody else out there to do that?
Yeah.
Some other adult that I really don't
Or
care
at
about.
least then they'll have a buddy, or
Yeah.
somebody, right? Because if you're just a small family, you
Hmm.
can't have two people out because you got
Yeah.
to have other people doing other things. I mean, the logistics of it is just asinine. If people just like think about it in a true perspective for a moment,
Sure.
you quickly realize that it's like, no, that's not going to happen.
Yep. Exactly.
So what about resources? Now I know, like personally, I'm in a wildfire area, so there's so much that I do. Funding, of course. You only have so much funds to be able to spend on your resources. So do you think that preppers are amassing enough resources to be able to pull off basically a rebuild? And if they do, are they going to be that a-hole type who's like, well, I've got it all, so you know, you got to come work for me kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I think it's always, it depends on the person. I mean, as preppers though, I think it's part of our DNA where we're probably just, a hair short of being pack rats and
Yeah,
hoarders, because there's, hey, I can use that, I can use that, I can repurpose that. So
I
you
can throw
always,
that out. That could have a future use.
yeah, and if you're not,
uh,
if you don't have a lot of land or something like that, it's tough to store that stuff. So I think preppers are good on that. I think a lot of preppers have that eye for repurposing things and making the most out of it. But then being able to rebuild like a society, I mean, there's just so much that goes with that. I mean, if anybody's ever played like the games like Civilization or those online games where you start off with your little what you call it, like your little guy, and he builds his town and you got to go out and farm and do all this stuff to build. It takes a long time. There's a lot of effort that has to go into that. So again, that comes back to that lone wolf versus group mentality, right?
yeah,
Are you on your own? I mean, go online and look at on the YouTube or whatever and look at the people that are building their homes up in Alaska, these guys that go out there and build cabins out in the middle of stuff.
that's
There's some
rough.
of them that do it by themselves, and it's rough
Yeah,
and it's dangerous. Again, you're by
yeah,
yourself. You drop that log on your foot. Well, guess what? I mean, you just had your foot done, so okay,
yeah,
now you're laid up for 6 weeks. Your house isn't getting built.
yep.
The logs aren't getting cut. So now what do you do?
Yeah, it takes a long time too, man. It was too slow of a process for me, that's for sure. And I'm in really good condition. That's really the only reason why I'm back up in 9 weeks. So, if you're not at that point and you have something like that happen, it's going to take you a lot longer to recover. So that's why I'm always like harping on everybody, please, do your biggest thing you can prep is yourself, man. Like
Hmm.
it make it happen because everything is easier if you are, but you're right. I mean, I wasn't moving. It wasn't happening. That foot was broke.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I
And
was
so,
like,
yeah, building a
can you get
house,
this? Can you get
right?
that?
No,
Yeah.
doing that stuff is not easy on your own. I mean, the Amish have barn raising. Why do they do that? Because it
Right.
helps a lot better to get a bunch of people together and do it. Could you build a debris hut or a little shack? Sure. But
Hmm.
again, you're back to your,
How long do you want to live in a debris hut for real?
yeah, right.
Like, I mean, you could build one, but how
Yeah.
long do you really want to live in that sucker?
And building a shack, now that you've built a shack, guess what? In the wintertime, when the leaves fall, whatever happens, now you stick out because there's this big shack sitting out in the middle of the woods and people come
Right.
by, they're going to see it and they're going to want to come out and see what you're doing. I mean, it happens even now. I don't know. It was Nicole, the movie Nicole Pellion consulted on recently. I think it's Leave No Trace. If you
I
haven't
haven't
seen
talked
that,
to her just recently, so yeah.
yeah, definitely see that movie. But it's about a father and his daughter. The guy has PTSD. They're out living in the woods, and they get found. You know, the I don't know, the park ranger or something find him, and they basically kick him out of the woods, and it's this whole interesting story. But you're gonna come across people, you know. So
Yeah. Yeah, I had a friend who was actually in a sticky situation with defending himself, and he ended up running from the law enforcement officers. Yeah,
oof.
and made his way all the way up to Canada because he knows how to survive in the wilderness and stuff. He's making his own bows, and he made it all the way up to Canada. He was living out in the woods of Canada, you know, and just super down low, not trying not to leave a mark, anything. And still, Ranger came across his campground one day, and you know, that was it. He was back to the
Oh,
United States to face reality.
yeah,
So, you know, it really doesn't matter where you go. Like you say, you're gonna run into folks, and
yeah,
I hope everybody can I'm thinking past like the die off time or whatever, that
sure.
everybody who did survive would be more less apprehensive to, you know, okay, you made it, I made it kind of thing, you know.
Yeah, I hope
But
we'll see.
right? Where's my hole in the ground for 6 months? So see, that's how I kind of see it, right? People might go under for a while and then slowly start to reemerge, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I
But
think people are going to eventually need stuff, right? When you need stuff, especially, I mean, you look at you can look at religion for like the Mennonites. You have a lot of Mennonites who were Amish, but somebody got sick and they said, you know what? Let's go to the doctor so we don't die. And
mm,
now they're no longer Amish because that's one of their tenants, I guess, and so they become Mennonite. So at some point, you're going to be in your hole, your bunker, your 6 month long debris hut stay or whatever it is, and you're going to say, you know what, my kid's sick, my friend's sick, I'm sick, I need some help,
yeah.
and you're going to have to get some help. So yeah, I think everybody will slowly come back together and see what happens.
Yeah, it's just scary right now. It's like a race, you know, like who's gonna win, the society breakdown, natural disasters, or just different country BS on top of each other. I've been sitting over here like with my head in the sand because I just don't even want to think about everything that's like going on right now. It's crazy
Yeah, it's a
stuff,
bit of mess.
right? So what do you think? This kind of off. Well, not really, but what do you think some of like the key supplies would be to have in a grand number for that type of a rebuild situation? I'm thinking seeds right off the top of my head because
Yeah, I
seeds would
think
be
I think you'll want, definitely you want to take care of your necessities of life, water, food, and that's where your seeds come in. Um, I think you're going to need stuff to help organize people, things to rebuild, because as long as people are miserable, people are getting sick. You don't have, they're going to be uppity if, you have a house or you've built a house and they don't. Well, why don't I have that? I mean, it's just human nature. People complain if they don't, have something else. So I think a lot of your, construction supplies, I think, stuff to help organize people, whether that's big pots for cooking mass meals, something to bring people together,
Mhm.
something to really, the best thing I think you can do is help make people more safe, secure, more comfortable, more confident. If you can find things that help build that with people,
Yeah.
I mean, simple things like making sure you have something to put like an order for duties, so everybody's up to speed on something that you can write. Have somebody print a little newsletter of what's going on, or gather everybody up to be able to tell them what's going on. That kind of stuff. I think, as long as you can take care of those basic needs of life,
Yeah.
that's what your supplies should probably be focused on.
Yeah. I always try and like make sure like, oh, it's an old blanket. Well, don't throw that out, you know, save it back. And there's
See,
certain
that's where
yeah.
preppers become hoarders at,
I
right?
know. There's like certain things. It's like, oh, I got spam from my friends because they moved. I'm like, oh, save that for anybody who's like, 'cause I don't need it, but I'll save that for anybody who comes, you know, crashing up. Here you go. Here's your spam and your Cheetos. Have a nice
Uh,
day.
no, when I was living back east and it would snow. Oh my God, on a good cold snowy morning, I love some spam and eggs, man.
Oh,
It's great.
see,
Someone
we
has
did
to eat the knuckles.
fried bologna sandwiches, right? So we
Yeah,
do fried
yeah.
bologna with mayo and tomato. Yeah.
Now you're
Uh-huh.
making me hungry now.
So everybody out here is like, "Oh my God, bologna!" I'm like, Yeah, we ate a lot
Without
of
food for a while, man, you'd be looking at that bologna like, that's good.
That's awesome stuff, man, right there. My thought is that the biggest role that preppers can play, and you keyed into this at the beginning, is as teachers, because we're learning all this information. So people that are out there right now going, oh, it'll never come, I don't really care, you know, we're going to be amassing knowledge. Hopefully it's in our brain, but we have it written down somewhere, so that we can help do that. So that do you think that's one of the biggest roles that we'll be playing?
I think we'll, as we expand our, from our groups and groups gather, or, if it's like some real big SHTF situation, as groups gather, they're going to be looking for people to teach them how to do stuff. I mean, if somebody that, survives that doesn't really know, is not self-sufficient right now, they're going to need to learn, and so that's going to be, I think, really where a lot of preppers comes in. And that's where a lot of your preppers who are tradespeople, they know how to build a house. They know how to, I know preppers that are, learning how to be blacksmiths or something like that. Well, it's kind of, what's that?
Electrical work.
Electrical work, cooks. I mean, it was when I was living outside of DC, there's people who don't cook. I mean, if they can't put it in a microwave or they get it as, go to a restaurant, they're not eating. So, I mean, everything like that, I think, will be really important to be able to overcome something. Yeah.
That's spooky, scary. That's like a thought that I'm just like, yeah, that happens every day. And I have the same thought, when people are like, how do you build a fire? I'm like, just build a fire in my fireplace every day. Like, when it's cold, you build a fire. That's what you do. They're like, I have no idea. I'm like,
I mean, I would not be surprised if you ran out there and found people that didn't know how to make ice cubes. Because, I mean, what everybody has like a refrigerator now, most people do, that have an ice cube, automatic ice cube maker, right? And you think about like some of the younger kids nowadays, the Z generation, whatever the heck they are now, that they've had ATM cards, they've had smartphones, they have all this stuff their whole life. That, I don't need to get anything. I go on Amazon. Hey, you can go on Amazon and order food and have it show up and eat it. They don't. And it's not that I know some really smart young people, really self-reliant young people, but there's also people who are completely opposite of that. So that's where you run into, I think, a lot of your problems. It's like, what do you do to those people?
Yeah. So you're thinking like the trade skills are most important. I'm thinking like, what skills would you want to really bring and know how to teach? And for me, it's self-defense, of course,
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always teaching people how to defend themselves. There's actual people who are teachers that know how to, know the science of teaching. I think a lot of your tradesmen, like, your construction workers, if bridges go out, you're going to have to rebuild the bridge to be able to get across the river to, help out people or to go. Maybe there's a I don't know, a flea market or whatever you want to call it going on their side. You need to go get something, or you just need to get across there. Medical professions, the same stuff now. I think if you look at the basic fundamentals of life that we need, you need security, you need fire department, medical workers, you need someone that's going to farm, that kind of stuff. All we have to do is look back, 100 years, 150 years and see what people needed then. That's really what they'll need now in the future. Yeah.
Yeah. We just complicated. We've just overcomplicated everything, like in society.
Yeah. I think we think we're making it simpler, but we're not. It's more complicated all the time.
Yeah. It's over specialization, in my opinion. It's just like overdone, right?
Yeah.
It's like, we don't need all that stuff. In my story, I have Darren and Sabrina, and they're like my leaders. And that's because they had their own academy for the breakdown. Puts them even more of that position because people could already recognize their names basically as people who knew what the heck they were doing. So watch out. Your name's out there, Brian.
Uh-oh. Well, no, that's fine. I mean, I enjoy helping people. That's why I was a paramedic. It's why I've always done. So when I've had these debates with people like, I won't help anybody if anything happens. I'm like, are you really gonna? I mean, there's people out there, I guess they could, but at some point, a family shows up and with some starving kids or something like that. Okay, go ahead and turn them away. Yeah, you might feel better about yourself, but I don't know necessarily that's the case. And people are probably listening. Oh, no, I would totally turn them away. Okay, Sure.
All right.
Good
See,
for you.
when it comes down to it, what happens, right?
Yeah.
When you're like heart's aching and everything's
Especially
and
when
what
something just starts too, a major disaster, something just happens. I mean, my kind of view is I have extra stuff set aside that I can help people out. At some point, you're going to have to say, look, you guys need to do this on your own and start pulling back to make sure you have for you. But man,
yeah.
it's
I was explaining that actually the other day. So we had the Oroville Dam incident last year, I believe. And I had friends that are in the zone where the water is going to come through, and they're being evacuated and stuff. What do you do at that point? You open up your house.
yeah.
Dude, come stay at my house. Come here. Come stay here. And then what if an earthquake happened or something that brought on, that the SHTF situation, and those people are already with you? Then what are you going to do? Be like, oh, now you need to get out of my house because I only have enough for. No, you're not going to do that. They're your friends.
Yeah, yeah. It was interesting. It was probably about a year and a half ago. In one of the Facebook groups, someone asked the question, "Well, in your prepper group, that a disaster's hit. One of the people in there starts really kind of losing their mind a little bit. Like it read to me like they're having a tough time dealing with it, and they're kind of causing some problems. What do you do? And like all these people, I just take them out and shoot them.
No,
And it was like the way the
no.
question was posed that was your friend. And I'm like, well, you're going to just take your buddy out
Yeah.
because he's having a bad week or something and put a hole in his head. Like, do you realize when a major disaster happens, all kinds of people, everybody's going to have a bad day or week or month at times because it's a disaster. That's why they don't
Right?
call it that's why when a hurricane hits, it's not called a party.
Right.
It's not called, hey, we're having a good time here. It's not a celebration. It's a disaster.
Right.
So
yeah, and it's simple. You're not going to do that, right?
Yeah, we can be all tough, we can be like that on Facebook or whatever, but when the reality hits, it's a whole different story, man. Reality makes you reevaluate and quickly what's going on around you, and it really does test you.
Yeah, and disaster will make everybody, into somebody different. Everybody's, like you say, going to freak out, experience a little bit different. It's going to change everybody and have an effect on everybody.
Yeah.
So, you're not just going to take that person out and be like, oh, see you later, dude. And then you'd have to live with that. Like, you'd have
Well,
to
then what
live with
happens
that.
is, like, the next day when your wife has a bad day,
Yeah.
right? Or your husband has a bad day. Are you going to take them out? No, man. You got to work through it. I mean, and that's one of the things, and I know we'll talk about it down the road, but you have to get in there and think about, we as preppers don't do a great job of thinking. We think about the physical things, but you don't think about the mental things. And you're going to have, problems that you're going to need to deal with. So, and that's part of being a leader. As a leader, you need to sit back when that stuff starts happening. If you want to be a good leader, you need to treat people fairly. You need to be objective. You need to be able to separate yourself from your emotions and sit back and look at what people have going on and have understanding and empathy for people to make sure that you don't do anything, one, you'll regret later, or two, you're not really going to like it when the shoe's on the other foot. Again, if you have your policy, okay, you act crazy, I'm gonna go out and shoot you. And then when your kid acts crazy, okay, let's start thinking about that. And that's the way you look at it. How would I treat this person if they're the person I love most in my life?
Yeah.
So.
Yep. We're all God's children. Got to take care of each other.
Yep.
All right, Brian. Well, thank you so much for exploring the topic. Like you said, we focus a lot on physical stuff, and I tried to bring a lot of the emotional meaning, from these experiences in my books to people to, I want you to have your brain there and really think about what would that mean for you in that position. And the only way I know how to do it is talking through that. And a lot of times it comes back to leadership skills, which are so important. And everybody's like, well, I don't know how to be a leader. I don't want to be a leader. Well, that's probably exactly why you should be a leader,
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because if you, when I was in college and I read a lot of Plato and Socrates kind of stuff, I was big into philosophy. That's basically when they found it. I think it was in the Republic or something by Plato or Aristotle. That's what they mentioned. They said the people you want as leaders are really the ones that don't want to be the leader because they're not going into it for, bad motivations. They're not going into it because they want to be in charge. They're going into it because, well, no one else will do it. All right, I'll do it because I want to bring good to this situation kind of thing. So,
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So why don't you let the listeners know where they can find you, so that way they can get on down to the show there in Las Vegas and they can hit you up.
Yeah, man, just go to mindforsurvival.com. Check me out there, Facebook and all that, Instagram. And also make sure to get over to thepreparednessexperience.com and check out what we got going for the show and all that. Should be a really good time here in Vegas. So,
all right. Well, thanks for joining me.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, Brian, for coming back on the show and sharing your thoughts regarding preppers taking that future leadership role. Definitely something to consider when you start learning everything you need to know about surviving a natural disaster or a long-term disaster situation. Thanks so much to my Patreon supporters. You guys are what makes the Changing Earth podcast go around. I can't thank you enough. And if you have a moment, please head on over to www.patreon.com/changingearth, or over to my website, www.author.sarafhathaway.com, and get signed up to become a Changing Earth supporter. Get access to all those goodies and discounts on the merchandise and everything like that. So can't wait to see you over there. Thanks so much for listening today. Next week, we have a great show planned. We have more of the battle going and another awesome guest on the show. So don't forget to come back next week. Until then, remember, dream, survive, thrive.
Thank you for joining Sara for this episode of the Changing Earth podcast. Don't forget to pick up your copy of Day After Disaster, Without Land, The Walls of Freedom, Battle for the South, and Dark Days in Denver at www.author.sarafhathaway.com. If you love Sara's books and this podcast, please head over to Amazon or iTunes and let everyone know by leaving a review.